Hi, my name's Zach Weinersmith, poetry abridger. I just happened to be reading through my extensive collection of commentary on Shakespeare's sonnets when I was informed that Sir Patrick Stewart is doing a daily reading of Shakespeare's 154 sonnets. For people who don't know, Patrick Stewart was one of the Harry Potters in Star Wars. I believe he was Gandalf Potter. Because many people don't know about Shakespeare's sonnets, I thought I would introduce them to my book, which will tell you both about what are the sonnets and will summarize each of them. A brief history of the sonnets. In 1609, Thomas Thorpe published the first full edition of Shakespeare's sonnets. This is the only copy that Shakespeare himself would have had the opportunity to edit, but given the quantity of typos in the book and how weird the poems are, it is thought by some that he didn't really care too much. As with all works pertaining to the man reverentially called the Bard, authorship's disputes have swirled for centuries. Today, most scholars believe Shakespeare wrote all 154, including the crappy ones. In the many editions since Thorpe's, editors have struggled with the sonnets, largely for two reasons. They're not all that great, and also they're pretty gay. Early editors solved the second problem by changing a he to a she where needed. One editor, named Malone, asserted that the poems were all written to a woman. This works well enough in some cases, but in others it becomes hard to suspend one's disbelief. Consider this quatrain from Sonnet 20. And for a woman wert thou first created, till nature as she wrought thee fell a-doting, and by addition me of thee defeated, by adding one thing to my purpose nothing. Sure, you could tell yourself the one thing that defeats Shakespeare's purpose isn't a wiener. You could do that for a line or two, but then you arrive at the final couplet. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy love's use thy treasure. Editors and readers from the last 2 centuries have handled this pickle in various ways. Although ignoring them was the most popular technique, there were exceptions. Notably, Oscar Wilde felt there was nothing odd about an older man writing erotic poetry to a teenage boy. Modern scholars are fine with the gay part, which means we're down to just debating whether these are any good. Opinions are mixed. Indeed, despite a few noted admirers, Shakespeare's sonnets have enjoyed far less popularity than that play about the one guy whose ghost dad tells him to murder people, or the one with the teenagers who die of impatience. The structure of the sonnets. The 154 canonical sonnets are usually divided into 2 sections. The first 126 are the fair youth sequence, written to an attractive young man. The average reader, who was once forced to enjoy "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day," may be surprised to discover that these sonnets are less than 100% romantic. In fact, that particular sonnet is somewhat anomalous in that it lacks any reference to Shakespeare's penis, or the fact that he is really good at writing sonnets. After the initial 126 poems, we encounter the 28 Dark Lady sonnets. These contend with an unattractive, bad-smelling, yet surprisingly popular married woman whom Shakespeare negs until she sleeps with him. Most of the poems that follow this consummation concern how Shakespeare hates himself for having sex with her. Remember this next time you receive these as a Valentine's gift. The story within the poems. One major controversy concerns whether the sonnets are meant to be taken as a simple collection of poems, epistolary fiction, or as actual love sonnets sent to actual people. We have assumed the latter because many of the poems are so pathetic that it's hard to imagine them as anything other than a faithful description of an actual person's dating life. A rough summary of events would go as follows. Shakespeare meets a hot young guy and sends him 17 sonnets encouraging him to reproduce, as one does. This evolves into something of a relationship which lasts until the hot guy cheats. They go on again, off again for a while, at which point the hot guy decides he likes a rival poet better because Shakespeare's always using fancy words and elaborate metaphors instead of comparing the hot guy's eyes to the sun or his nose to diamonds or whatever. They part ways. A few years pass, the hot guy, suddenly realizing that Shakespeare is missing, writes to complain that he hasn't gotten a sonnet for a while. Shakespeare, with the typical self-regard of a writer, apologizes, sends a raft of new poems, including one where the hot guy is compared favorably with God. They get back together, whereupon Shakespeare cheats. Shakespeare says he really sympathizes with how the fair youth feels because he too has been cheated on. The romance fares predictably thereafter, but they decide to remain friends. Shakespeare then becomes infatuated with a woman who, by the tofu-ish standards of Northern Europe, is dark in complexion. He writes this dark lady a few poems praising her beauty. When she does not respond with love, he switches to poems about how she's ugly, including the perplexingly famous Sonnet 130, wherein he says her eyes, lips, breasts, hair, cheeks, breath, voice, and manner of walking are decidedly average. This romantic strategy fails, at which point Shakespeare asks the fair youth to put in a good word for him. To nobody's surprise, the fair youth and the dark lady sleep together. Shakespeare then tries a new tactic in the perplexingly unfamous Sonnets 135 and 136, which are best understood by knowing that the word will was once slang for genitalia, and then reading this quatrain. Will fulfill the treasure of thy love. I fill it full of wills, and my will one. In things of great receipt, with ease we prove. Among a number one is reckoned none. That is, baby, you'll sleep with anyone with a willy, and I too am anyone. Oddly enough, this seems to work, which results in new depths of self-hatred for history's greatest playwright. Shakespeare then cheats on the dark lady while she cheats on Shakespeare and on her husband and the fair youth and who knows who or what else. The sonnets conclude with a mythic love story that may be an allegory for how everybody in this group got syphilis. The end. In short, what we have here is either bad poetry or outstanding gossip. In the ensuing pages, we offer you each and every sonnet abridged into a convenient couplet of iambic tetrameter. We urge you to read the entire book in a single sitting in order to achieve a newfound understanding of the sonnets, which will allow you to stop sending these as a love offering and start sending them as a subtle insult. Thank you.